Analysts believe there's two very good reasons for why the electric car market is about to be smashed in the United States. Prices will go up on average 12,000 US dollars. Sales will crater. And this is not good news if it is actually true. If I'm totally honest, I didn't really think Donald Trump would go ahead and do this. I thought it was more of a bargaining chip, something to negotiate with, but it looks like he has. The 25% tariff on Mexican and Canadian-made cars is in place. It's now happening. It's now very real. It's going to have some pretty severe ramifications, though, on the sale prices of cars inside the United States. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Sam Evans. You're watching the Electric Viking. Great to have you with us. If you're not already, make sure you become a YouTube member. I'll put a link to their member page in the description below. Canada and China have reacted to this. By the way, this is not just Mexico and Canada that tariffs apply to, it's also China. And countries are reacting. Now, imports from Canada and Mexico will be subject to duties of 25%. Goods and services from China will be subject to an additional 10%, in addition to an existing tariff of 10%. So basically that means everything now you guys buy from China will have a 20% tariff. Everything in Canada and Mexico, 25%. Canada and China have announced retaliatory tariffs. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau immediately announced retaliatory tariffs of 25% on imports from the United States. Canada will not leave this unjustified action unanswered, said Trudeau. Now, obviously, Justin Trudeau likes to present everything as some sort of emotional thing. And, he speaks in very emotional terms. So I kind of don't think that he's, to be honest, any better of a leader than Donald Trump is. China has immediately imposed tariffs on US goods, including chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton. Beijing also published a list of companies that may face a business ban in China. Hard cuts for the auto industry are probably coming as well. This marks the beginning of a trade war with incalculable consequences for the global economy and potentially severe cuts for the automotive industry. Stock prices collapsed after Trump's announcement, but I want to interject here, guys, with some information that I think we're kind of missing. When Trump, in his first presidency, he put a 25%, actually might have been 27%, anyways, around 25% tariff on cars made in China that were being sold in the United States. Now, the Biden administration increased that percentage of tariff to 102.5%. So the tariffs have come from both sides of politics. Now, I realize some of you are very, very emotional about which side of politics you follow, but we have to accept that that is actually true. Now, that doesn't mean that I agree with it, just pointing out what's been happening. Very exclusive event here in Newcastle. Saturday, the 15th of March from 3 to 5 p.m. I'll be speaking here with just a couple of other speakers. Very small event. So you can meet me in person. You can actually have a look at my EV as well, the Xpeng G6. Test that out. I'll put a link in the description below to the event. I believe that the tickets will probably sell out very, very quickly. So if you're from Sydney, from Brisbane, from Newcastle, make sure you click on that link as quickly as possible to get in. I think there's only around 30 tickets left at this point in time. I'll put that link in the description and I'll see you there. Almost all car manufacturers and many suppliers use Mexico as a production site for the US market. This means companies like General Motors, BMW, and others are going to see some big problems. Models that they make in Canada and Mexico will no longer be able to be sold in America. They'll just be too expensive to sell in the United States. The tariffs against Canada will affect Volkswagen particularly. The Volkswagen company wants to build a battery cell factory in the province of Ontario that will supply its electric car plants in the United States. That battery factory likely has to be put on hold or potentially cancelled now. The US president suspended the tariffs shortly before they came into force at the beginning of February and demanded that Mexico and Canada make more efforts to secure their borders, citing drug smuggling. They have failed to respond appropriately, the White House press release now states. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rejected the allegations and said the tariffs are damaging an incredibly successful trading partnership. Mexico and Canada are the USA's most important trading partners and account for around 40% of the exchange of goods and services. So it's a pretty significant number. How does this affect you, though? That's probably what's more interesting, I think, for a lot of people. Well, some analysts are saying this could affect electric car prices by around $12,000 US. Particularly, EVs will be hurt more than internal combustion engine vehicles. So why are they saying this? Well, a new study from the Anderson Economics Group warns that prices are set to skyrocket due to Donald Trump's tariffs, which have now taken effect. And that alone could be a significant issue to your wallet, but it's also adding chaos to the automotive industry. The analyst group, based its findings on the proposed tariffs against Mexico and Canada and a 10% tariff against China, though that's actually going to be 20% now. Using those figures, it predicts that even small crossovers will see at least a $4,000 price increase. Large SUVs with significant content from Mexico will go up by roughly $9,000, and trucks will see a similar bump. Here's the key thing, and I think a lot of Americans don't realize. Most of the parts going into your Fords and your GMs and your Toyotas, most of the parts in those cars are not from America. That's why Tesla always wins. The Tesla is always first, second, third, and fourth in the most American-made car index, because their cars have around 60 to 70% of them are actually, the parts are actually made in the United States. But GM and Ford and pretty much all of the other automotive car manufacturers, these are all under 50%. Nearly all of them are under 50%. I mean, we're talking 99% of them are. So that means it will have an effect. There's no doubt it will have an effect, because the cost of those parts will have gone up by either 20% from China or 25% from Canada and Mexico. And that's actually a pretty big number. Electric vehicles will be the hardest hit, say analysts. AEG believes they'll see an increase of $12,000 on average. Of course, I'm going to guess Tesla will keep their prices the same. So it's an interesting move here. Combine that with the potential death of EV subsidies, and while the EV market will definitely be damaged somewhat. That kind of cost increase will lead directly, and I expect almost immediately, to a decline in sales of the models that have the biggest trade impacts, said Patrick Anderson, Chief Executive Officer for Anderson Economic Group, to Bloomberg. You'll see some model and trim types just completely disappear, he said. There's no doubt some models in the United States from certain manufacturers are going to be gone. And I'll do a separate video on what models will be eliminated, which you won't be able to buy anymore, because otherwise the manufacturers will just be losing money. Why will EVs be hit harder than internal combustion engine vehicles? Well, it's about the materials. All electric vehicle manufacturers are going to feel pressure from those tariffs because they use way more steel and aluminium than a conventional combustion engine car, said Mark Bush, Professor of International Business Diplomacy at Georgetown University. So I have no doubt that this will get Musk's attention, and I can imagine that that would be an added political pressure benefit in terms of retaliatory strikes by the European Union, Canada, and others. Tesla's situation is interesting. They build their US sold vehicles in Fremont, California, and Austin, Texas. The parts, it's true though, most of them come from the United States, but many are also sourced from China, Canada, and Mexico. 15% of the Model Y's components come from Mexico. They're already scrambling to avoid a rise in the 25% tariff on Chinese graphite, a key material for lithium-ion batteries. So yeah, I mean, do you have to buy graphite from China? Well, actually, you do really. I mean, you can get it elsewhere, but it's a fair bit more expensive. So yeah, I mean, EV manufacturers will have to pay for certain things they're getting from China, and those prices will go up. It's worth pointing out, though, that all three of the major US automakers produce vehicles in Mexico, Canada, or both. So Stellantis, Ram, Jeep, etc., Ford, General Motors, they all make cars in Mexico and Canada, and they will be significantly affected by this. But Ford manufactures the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Bronco Sport, and the Maverick in Mexico. Ram they make vehicles in both Mexico and the USA. The Silverado, that is actually made in the United States, Canada, and Mexico, but obviously it's much cheaper to manufacture them in Mexico. Anyway, what does this all mean? Well, automakers are doing whatever they can to counter these tariffs. Some are having suppliers build up stock. Others are storing parts in strategic locations to avoid getting hit with these tariffs. The automotive industry was not expecting this to actually happen. So they're kind of going a bit ballistic. They're thinking, what the hell are we going to do about this? Because we didn't think this would really, really actually happen. A union representative told Bloomberg that Ford is racing product over the US-Canada border in anticipation of the tariffs. In addition, it's securing warehouse storage so that it can keep all of these parts secure and safe from the potential tariffs. We usually store them here in Canada until we're ready to send to the truck plants. But they're finding places in the United States to store those engines so they don't get tariffs. What about What about what Mexico and Canada can do about this? Well, Politico said this: there's no room left for Mexico or for Canada to negotiate. They're all set. These tariffs are done. It's game over. And I think these tariffs will probably last for not all that long, to tell you the truth. In fact, I'd say most people don't think they will, because clearly Donald Trump is using these tariffs as a bargaining tool to get Mexico and Canada to do what he wants. And to some degree, I think they'll come to his party just because the United States is such a powerful country. I could be wrong, though. What are your thoughts? Let me know what you think in the comments.